To understand Klaus Mikaelson, you have to first understand Mikael. There is no way around this. Every single part of Klaus's personality, every choice he made, every fear that drove him, can be traced back to the abuse he suffered at the hands of the man he called father. This is not just fan theory. This is canonical fact, laid out across every season of the originals and backed by decades of peer-reviewed psychological research on the long-term effects of chronic childhood abuse. Mikael did not just hurt Klaus physically, he built a psychological blueprint inside his mind, a blueprint of paranoia, fear, and rage that would define every single day of his 1,000-year life. We have to start at the very beginning, with the circumstances of Klaus's birth. Mikael and Esther were Viking settlers who traveled to the New World after their first child, Henrik, died of the plague in Europe. They built a life in the New World, alongside the werewolf tribes that lived there. They had more children: Freya, Finn, Elijah, Cole, Rebekah, Dan, and then Klaus. But Klaus was not Mikael's biological child. Esther had an affair with a werewolf chief named Ansel from the neighboring tribe. Klaus was born half Viking, half werewolf. And for years, Esther kept that secret from everyone, including Mikael. For the first few years of Klaus's life, things were relatively peaceful. But that peace shattered when Henrik, the youngest of the Mikaelson children, was killed by a werewolf during a full moon. Mikael was consumed by grief and rage. He begged Esther, who was a powerful witch, to use her magic to make their children immortal, so they would never be hurt again. Esther agreed. She performed the ritual that turned Mikael and her 6 living children into the first vampires in history. The original vampires. That ritual changed the world forever, and it changed Klaus's life in ways no one could have predicted. When Klaus made his first human kill after the transition, his werewolf gene was triggered. The secret Esther had hidden for years was finally out. Mikael learned that Klaus was not his biological son, that he was the child of the man whose people had killed his youngest son. And Mikael's grief and rage turned directly onto Klaus. He did not see a child. He saw a reminder of his wife's betrayal. He saw the blood of the werewolves who had killed his son. He saw an abomination. And from that moment on, he treated Klaus like one. Esther, terrified at Mikael's rage and the power of Klaus's hybrid nature, performed another ritual. She used magic to seal Klaus's werewolf side away, locking it behind a wall of magic that he would not break for 1,000 years. This act did 2 things. It took away the part of Klaus that was truly his, the part that connected him to his biological father and his werewolf heritage. And it gave Mikael even more ammunition to use against him. Mikael called him a half-breed, an abomination, a monster. He told Klaus over and over again that he was unworthy of love, that he was a mistake, that he would never be part of the family. This is where the chronic abuse started. And we're not talking about occasional harsh words. We're talking about sustained, systematic, physical and emotional torture that lasted for decades, while Klaus was still a child trapped in a young man's body. Mikael beat Klaus for the smallest mistakes. He starved him. He locked him away for days at a time. He humiliated him in front of his siblings. He pitted the other children against him, making them choose between standing with Klaus or facing Mikael's wrath themselves. And through it all, he told Klaus that he deserved it, that he was a monster, and this is what monsters get. The American Psychological Association's 2022 clinical study on complex post-traumatic stress disorder in survivors of chronic childhood abuse found that this exact pattern of abuse has a specific, predictable effect on the developing brain. When a child is subjected to constant, unpredictable violence and rejection from a parental figure, their brain enters a permanent state of hypervigilance. They learn that the world is not safe, that love is conditional, that the only way to survive is to be constantly on guard, to expect betrayal at every turn. They learn that vulnerability equals pain, that opening up to someone, trusting someone, only gives them the power to hurt you. This is exactly what happened to Klaus. Mikael's abuse did not just hurt his body, it rewired his entire brain. It built an architecture of paranoia inside his mind that would stay with him for 1,000 years. He learned that he could never let his guard down, that he could never trust anyone, not even his own siblings, that the only way to keep himself safe was to make everyone else fear him. Because if people were afraid of you, they could not hurt you. If you struck first, they could not strike you. If you built yourself into a monster, no one could ever call you one and make it hurt. This is what we call a defense mechanism. In clinical terms, it is called reaction formation. It is when a person takes the part of themselves that they are ashamed of, that they fear, and they embrace it fully. They turn it into their identity, to take away the power other people have to hurt them with it. Klaus was told every single day that he was a monster. So he decided to become the most terrifying monster the world had ever seen. He took the label Mikael gave him, and he turned it into a weapon. He turned it into armor. If everyone was afraid of him, no one would ever dare to hurt him the way Mikael had. This defense mechanism worked. For a while. It kept him alive. It helped him survive Mikael's abuse, but it also trapped him, because the more he embraced the monster, the more he cut himself off from the one thing he wanted more than anything. Love, acceptance, belonging. He pushed his siblings away. He pushed away anyone who tried to get close to him, because he believed deep down that he was unworthy of love. That if anyone ever saw the real him, the broken boy underneath the monster mask, they would reject him, just like Mikael had. Mikael did not stop abusing Klaus when the Mikaelson family fled the New World. He followed them. He spent 1,000 years hunting Klaus across the globe. He killed anyone who ever helped Klaus. He destroyed any home Klaus tried to build. He made it clear over and over again that he would never stop, that he would hunt Klaus to the ends of the earth until he was dead. This constant threat of annihilation reinforced the paranoia in Klaus's mind. He could never settle down. He could never trust anyone. He could never let his guard down because Mikael could be around any corner. He could be coming for him at any moment. This is the context for every terrible thing Klaus did over the next 1,000 years. Every time he killed someone, every time he manipulated his siblings, every time he betrayed someone who trusted him. It all came back to that paranoia, that hypervigilance, that belief that the only way to survive was to strike first, to take power, to make everyone fear him. He was not just killing for fun. He was not just manipulating for power. He was trying to build a world where he was safe, where no one could ever hurt him again, where Mikael could never reach him. This brings us to the always and forever vow, the promise the Mikaelson siblings made to each other after they became vampires, the promise that they would always stand by each other always and forever. For most viewers, this vow is the heart of the Mikaelson family. It is the promise that keeps them together through everything. But the truth is, before Hope was born, this vow was not a source of strength. It was a cage of codependency that trapped all of them, but especially Klaus. The always and forever vow was the only thing Klaus had that felt like safety. It was the only promise that had ever been made to him that he thought might not be broken. But he also knew from his childhood that even family could turn on you, that even the people who were supposed to love you could hurt you. So he spent 1,000 years trying to control his siblings to make sure they never left him. He daggered them when they tried to go their own way. He manipulated them into staying with him. He punished them when they defied him. He did this not because he was evil, but because he was terrified. Terrified of being alone. Terrified of losing the only family he had. Terrified of being abandoned, the way Mikael had abandoned him. His siblings enabled this codependency. Elijah spent 1,000 years making excuses for Klaus's behavior, cleaning up his messes, trying to fix him. Rebekah spent 1,000 years bouncing between loving Klaus and hating him, between wanting to stay with her family and wanting to build a life of her own. Cole spent 1,000 years acting out, trying to get the attention and love he never got from his family. Finn spent 1,000 years resenting all of them for trapping him in a life he never wanted. They were all trapped in the cage of always and forever, bound together by their shared trauma, unable to break free, unable to fix each other. This is the critical detail that most casual viewers miss. Klaus's 1,000-year reign of terror was not driven by a lust for power. It was driven by fear, by paranoia, by the trauma of Mikael's abuse, by the desperate need to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel like he belonged. The monster he became was not who he was. It was the armor he built to survive. It was the defense mechanism that kept him alive, but also trapped him in a cycle of violence and pain that he could not break. Even after Klaus finally killed Mikael, the ghost of his father never left him. The paranoia was still there. The hypervigilance was still there. The belief that he was unworthy of love was still there. Killing Mikael did not fix the trauma. It did not erase the blueprint Mikael had built inside his mind. It did not break the cycle of violence, because the damage had already been done. It had been done 1,000 years before when Mikael first looked at Klaus and saw a monster instead of a child. This is the state Klaus was in when he learned that Haley Marshall was pregnant with his child. He was trapped in a prison of his own making, trapped by his paranoia, trapped by his trauma, trapped by the monster he had built to survive, trapped in the cage of always and forever. He had all the power in the world. He was the most feared creature in the supernatural world, but he was not free. He had never been free. Not since the day Mikael first raised a hand to him. The birth of Hope Mikaelson changed all of that. It shattered the architecture of paranoia that Mikael had built inside Klaus's mind. It broke the cage of codependency that had trapped the Mikaelson siblings for 1,000 years. It forced Klaus to confront everything he had buried, everything he had feared, everything he had run from, and it gave him a reason to finally break the cycle, to be better, to do better, not for himself, but for his daughter. In the next chapter, we're going to break down exactly how Hope's birth acted as a catalyst for the deconstruction of Klaus's ego. We're going to look at how he went from seeing his unborn daughter as a tactical weakness to seeing her as a mirror for the lost humanity he had buried 1,000 years before. We're going to talk about what it meant for Klaus to finally have something to lose that was more precious than his own power. And we're going to look at how he started to bridge the gap between his identity as a hybrid predator and his new role as a guardian of innocence. When Klaus Mikaelson first learnt that Haley Marshall was pregnant with his child, his first reaction was not joy. It was not excitement. It was rage and fear. He immediately saw the baby as nothing more than a tactical weakness, a target that his enemies could use against him, a crack in the armor he had spent 1,000 years building. He even went so far as to consider killing Haley and the unborn child to eliminate the weakness before it could be used against him. This is the Klaus we had come to know, the man who saw everything and everyone through the lens of power and control, the man who eliminated any threat before it could hurt him, the man who had shut down every part of himself that could feel love or vulnerability to survive. But something shifted, even in those early days, something that would eventually dismantle the very core of who Klaus was. The first crack in the armor came from Elijah. Elijah saw the baby as a chance for redemption. For Klaus, for their family, for all the terrible things they had done over 1,000 years. He made a deal with Haley. He promised to protect her and the baby, no matter what. And he begged Klaus to give the child a chance. To see this not as a weakness, but as a gift. Klaus resisted at first. He clung to his paranoia. He clung to his identity as the monster. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, he started to let his guard down. He started to see the baby not as a threat, but as something he had never dared to hope for. A chance to be different, a chance to be better. This shift did not happen overnight. It was not a single moment that changed everything. It was 1,000 small moments that added up to a complete deconstruction of the ego Klaus had built over 1,000 years. We have to be clear about what we mean when we say ego deconstruction. In psychological terms, the ego is the part of our identity that we present to the world. It is the mask we wear, the story we tell ourselves about who we are. For Klaus, his ego was the monster, the hybrid, the most feared creature in the supernatural world. That was the identity he had built for himself. That was the mask he wore every single day. And Hope's birth shattered that mask. It forced him to confront the parts of himself he had buried, the parts he was ashamed of, the parts he thought were long dead. The first critical shift happened when Klaus started to see Hope as a mirror for his own lost humanity. When he looked at his unborn daughter, he did not see a monster. He did not see an abomination. He saw innocence, he saw purity. He saw a child that deserved to be loved, a child that deserved a better childhood than he had. And in that, he saw a reflection of the boy he had once been, the boy Mikael had broken, the boy he had left behind 1,000 years before. For the first time in his long life, he allowed himself to feel grief for that boy, to acknowledge the pain he had carried for so long, to realize that he was not born a monster. He had been made into one. This is backed up by decades of research on attachment theory, first developed by psychologist John Bowlby and expanded on by Mary Ainsworth in the 1970s. Bowlby's research found that the bond between a parent and child is the most powerful emotional bond a human being can form. For people who did not form a secure attachment to their own parents in childhood, the birth of their own child can act as a corrective emotional experience. It can give them a chance to reparent themselves, to give their child the love, safety, and security they never got, to heal the wounds of their own childhood through the love they have for their child. This is exactly what happened to Klaus. He never had a secure attachment to a parental figure. Mikael was abusive and violent. Esther was distant and neglectful. She sealed away his werewolf side and eventually tried to kill him and his siblings. He never knew what it was like to be loved unconditionally, to be protected, to be safe. But when Hope was born, he had the chance to give that to her. He had the chance to be the father he never had, to be the protector he never had. And in doing that, he started to heal the parts of himself that had been broken for 1,000 years. We see this play out in small, quiet moments across the first season of the originals. Moments that casual viewers often miss, but that are the core of Klaus's transformation. We see him painting a mural for Hope's nursery, a mural of the stars, of the world he wanted to show her. We see him talking to Haley's stomach, to the unborn Hope when he thinks no one is listening, telling her stories, promising her the world, promising her that he will never let anyone hurt her the way he was hurt. We see him putting himself in danger over and over again to protect Haley and the unborn Hope. Not because it gives him power, not because it eliminates a threat, but because he cares, because he loves them, even if he cannot say the words out loud yet. The most pivotal moment in this early shift comes in the season 1 finale of the originals. Hope is born, but the witches of New Orleans have a plan to kill her, to end the Mikaelson bloodline once and for all. Klaus and his family are forced to fake Hope's death, to send her away with Haley to keep her safe. Klaus has to pretend that his daughter is dead. He has to stand in front of the people of New Orleans and lie about the death of the one person he loves more than anything in the world. And in that moment, we see the mask slip completely. We see the grief, the pain, the love, the vulnerability. The monster is gone. All that is left is a father who would do anything to protect his daughter, even if it means breaking his own heart. This is the moment when Klaus's entire identity starts to shift. Before Hope was born, his entire sense of self was tied to his power, to his reputation as the most feared creature in the world, to his control over New Orleans, over his family, over everyone around him. But after Hope is born, he realizes that there is something more precious than power, something more important than control. His daughter, her safety, her happiness, her future. For the first time in his life, he has something to lose that is not his own life, his own power, his own reputation. He has something to live for, something to fight for, something to be better for. This is the bridge between his old identity as a hybrid predator and his new role as a guardian of innocence. Before Hope, Klaus saw the world as a hunt. He was the predator, and everyone else was prey. He took what he wanted, when he wanted it, and killed anyone who got in his way. He saw vulnerability as a weakness. He saw kindness as a flaw. He saw love as a trap. But after Hope is born, he starts to see the world differently. He starts to see it as a place he has to protect, a place he has to make safe for his daughter. He starts to see vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a strength. He starts to see that love is not a trap. It is the only thing that can set him free. We see this shift clearly in his relationship with Marcel Girard. Marcel was the boy Klaus rescued from slavery in New Orleans over 100 years before. Klaus raised Marcel like a son. He loved him, but he also controlled him. He treated Marcel the way Mikael had treated him, with violence, with manipulation, with conditional love. He saw Marcel as an extension of himself, as someone who should be loyal to him no matter what. And when Marcel defied him, when he took control of New Orleans, Klaus saw it as the ultimate betrayal. He went to war with Marcel. He tried to kill him. He treated Marcel the same way Mikael had treated him. But after Hope is born, Klaus's relationship with Marcel starts to change. He starts to see Marcel not as a threat, not as a soldier, but as a man who was also hurt by the cycle of violence Klaus had perpetuated. He starts to take responsibility for the way he treated Marcel. He starts to apologize. He starts to work with Marcel instead of against him to protect Hope, because he realizes that Marcel is the only person who can understand what it is like to be raised by Klaus Mikaelson, the only person who can help him break the cycle, the only person who can help him be a better father to Hope than he was to Marcel. This is the core of Klaus's ego deconstruction. He has to unlearn everything he thought he knew about power, about control, about love. He has to let go of the identity he built over 1,000 years. The monster, the hybrid, the tyrant. He has to face the parts of himself he is ashamed of, the harm he has done, the pain he has inflicted on the people who loved him. He has to admit that he was wrong, that he made mistakes, that he is not perfect, that he is not the all-powerful monster he pretended to be. This is not an easy process. It is painful. It is messy. Klaus falls back into old habits over and over again. He lashes out. He manipulates. He kills. He tries to take control of situations he cannot control, because that is what he knows how to do. That is the survival mechanism that kept him alive for 1,000 years. But every time he falls back, he gets back up. He tries again. He does better. Not for himself, but for Hope, because he wants to be the man his daughter can be proud of. He wants to be the father she deserves. The American Psychological Association's 2023 study on personality change in parents with a history of complex trauma found that this exact pattern is common in trauma survivors who become parents. The study found that the birth of a child can trigger a complete restructuring of a person's identity, priorities, and value system. It can help survivors break free from the destructive patterns they learnt in childhood by giving them a reason to change, a reason to heal, a reason to be better. The study also found that this change is not linear. It involves setbacks and mistakes and relapses into old patterns. But the consistent motivation to protect and care for their child can lead to long-term, sustainable personality change, even in people who have experienced severe chronic childhood trauma. This is exactly what we see with Klaus. Hope's birth does not magically fix him. It does not erase 1,000 years of trauma. It does not make the monster disappear overnight, but it gives him a reason to change, a reason to fight against the patterns he learned from Mikael, a reason to deconstruct the ego he built to survive, a reason to find his way back to the humanity he lost 1,000 years before. By the end of the first season of the originals, Klaus is no longer just the monster we met in the Vampire Diaries. He is a father. He is a man who has learned to love, to care, to be vulnerable. He is a man who is starting to break free from the prison of his own trauma. He is a man who is starting to understand that power is not about making people fear you. It is about protecting the people you love. In the next chapter, we're going to dive deeper into this shift. We are going to contrast Mikael's toxic, tough love through physical and emotional torture with Klaus's desperate attempts to be a softer, more loving presence for hope. We're going to look at the pivotal moments where Klaus consciously chooses to break the pattern of abandonment and abuse that defined his own childhood. And we are going to highlight how protecting hope required Klaus to confront the monster within himself to make sure his daughter never had to see it.